Hello! So in my last video on Wednesday, I talked a bit about the idea of redemption and how we can redeem our time during this whole crisis situation that we're in right now. And I ended it by challenging you to try and figure out what it is that you have been called to do during this pandemic by looking at what you have an excess of and then moving forward based on that. Maybe you have an excess of time, maybe it's an excess of money, maybe it's an excess of phone screen time, stuff like that. So today, maybe ironically, I actually want to challenge you to do less. Something that struck me these past 10 days being in quarantine, just being stuck in the apartment, not being able to go anywhere, is the various ways that I use my time. How I spend it, what I focus it on, where my efforts go, etc. And there have been some days during these past 10 days where I really have not known what to do with myself because I'm not doing anything. And then on the other hand, there are days when I'm busier than I am during a normal week. And during the course of my time talking with students this week, which I do a lot because it's my job, some of them are incredibly bored and other ones have more work than they've ever had this year. And that difference, that variety in time and the way that we use our time got me thinking, because sometimes God speaks to us through our circumstances. The world around us before all the coronavirus stuff hit was always moving. There's always something happening, there's always the next thing to pay attention to, there's always the next task to check off your to-do list. I love to-do lists. Life in 2020 is like listening to a podcast at double speed, or a YouTube video on double speed, which, by the way, is how I do it, because there's always more podcasts to listen to, more things to check off, the faster the better, right? Life is always moving, and the pace that it's at today kind of makes it hard for us to stop, because there's obligations. There's things that we have to do with our time if we want to keep our families fed, if we want to keep a roof over our heads, which is pretty important. And in some ways, that's continuing now during coronavirus. We still have work. Many of us are able to do our jobs entirely from our home, which is great. But this is what I've been thinking about. And that's that what if, during all the craziness, when our government, our health officials are telling us to stay indoors, what if in the middle of that moment, God wants us to slow down? What if God is giving us a chance through these circumstances to slow down the pace, to be still and know that He is God? And I think that could be very likely, honestly, because so often God speaks in silence and in solitude. In chapter 19 of the book of 1 Kings, the prophet Elijah is hiding in the desert. He's been threatened with death by Queen Jezebel. He's afraid. And just like many of us, we're stuck in these cave-like rooms. He's stuck in a literal cave, feeling helpless. A powerful queen is out to get him and have him killed. He looks out of his cave and he sees an entire nation out to get him. And he's just one poor guy. Like, what can he possibly do against this? And in the same way, we look outside of our windows and we see an unprecedented pandemic taking place everywhere that we look. We don't know much about it. We're just individual people. What can we possibly do against something this big? Elijah was crying out to God. He was looking for a sign in that moment, and many of us are too. People are losing time with friends and family. People are losing time at school. People are losing jobs. People are losing lives. This is serious. And some of us are asking, why? Some of us are disappointed with the way that life looks. Some of us are looking for God to speak. But God so often speaks through solitude and through silence. I'm going to get my Bible. This is 1 Kings 19, verses 11 through 13. Here we go. Then God said, "Go out and stand on the mountain in the Lord's presence." And at that moment the Lord passed by. A great and mighty wind was tearing at the mountains and was shattering cliffs before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake there was a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire there was a voice, a gentle, soft whisper. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his mantle, and he went out and stood at the entrance of his cave. Suddenly a voice came to him and said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And notice there that God's voice didn't come in the big dramatic things. God's voice came through the silence and a whisper, a gentle whisper specifically. And maybe today we're missing the gentle whisper. Maybe in the grind of normal day-to-day life before all this stuff happened, It would have taken a giant wind or an earthquake or a fire to get our attention, but it's the gentle whisper that carries the voice of God. And this time where we're forced to be home, when we by necessity have less social obligations, maybe this is the perfect time to be still, to be silent, to withdraw to a secluded place like Jesus did so often and listen. Just listen for that small, gentle whisper of the Spirit. And this might not be easy. Some of us have kids running around screaming. Which some of us are super busy because we're in a position of authority in our jobs. And some of us have basically become part-time homeschool teachers. And if that's you, maybe you really need the quiet time. So here's my challenge. Take 5 minutes today. Go outside, sit somewhere nice, pray the prayer that Samuel prayed when he was waiting to hear from God. He said, "Speak, Lord, your servant is listening." And then just be still. Eyes open, eyes closed, whatever you feel comfortable with. Just be still and know that He's God. And try it out, because like I said, maybe God wants you to slow down in this crazy time. We love you. We're praying for you. Have a great day.